Boom, now recording. Okay, welcome to the Adhocracy podcast. Jack Peterson, glad to have you on board.
Yeah, thanks. Happy to be here.
So we have watched a few sci-fi movies together and enjoyed talking that. And we watched Coherence, which we both had a lot of fun discussions about. Really great movie for a low budget, but a lot of questions that kind of came out of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think, some of the things that I really enjoyed that is all put together. I think you mentioned it is all recorded in like one day?
It was like 2 or 3 days. They did the whole
2 or 3 days
thing.
of like straight recording. Like I find that impressive. Like, so props to whoever actually directed that and got everyone coordinated on that.
Totally.
Because I cannot imagine that was a fun time for the actors. And then 2, they actually used the real actors, actresses' names in the movies, right? Like it was, if you had a Jenny, it was Jenny, like in the movie, which was super
that
cool.
was a really cool way of doing that.
Yeah, I think that just kind of makes probably for a more natural dynamic. So I thought that was a fun one. I was curious, you did some reading though about the asteroid and some of the similarities to things that happen in real life. What were some of those?
I'm going to probably butcher the name. Tunguska event, where basically an asteroid exploded over Siberia. I want to say in the 1800s. I forget exactly when, but basically there was nobody out there. So it wasn't this big thing from our history that lots of people know about. But if it had been over a major city, it would have like leveled Paris.
Yeah.
So that was the one piece from that movie that was
nuke side of things too. There are all kinds of like things with electrical grid problems, right?
Oh,
too?
yeah. The EMPs. And I don't know if there's EMPs that are tied. I don't know if an EMP would be tied to an asteroid impact or not, but I'm sure that there's a lot of other impacts that could happen from an asteroid impact. Haha.
Apophis, right? That's the big one that just passed by, and we're good for another 100 years.
Yeah, I want to dig into that one eventually, but and it's supposed to land on a Friday the 13th is when it's going to come whizzing by next time.
Oh, nice. Yeah, they dialed it in that close, huh?
April 13th. Yeah, but we then went and watched Day After Tomorrow, or what was Edge of Tomorrow.
Live, Die, Repeat. That was the retitling of it.
Yeah,
right?
The retitling. That's why I messed up the title, not because I forgot. But we sit down and watch that, and I thought that was a good mix of action and sci-fi. But I think you liked it less than I was thinking you would, which really queued up in my mind like the type of sci-fi you like is, it's probably a little bit different than mine, which makes it interesting, but also it's a little, I think you like the heady stuff more than the action, which I think at the end of the day makes a sci-fi movie that is more like you can talk about it more.
Yeah, I think for me, what really pulls me in, like if I'm going to suspend my disbelief, I'll watch Star Wars. Now this is going to like totally aggravate Star Wars fans out there, but Star Wars is not sci-fi, period. Star Wars is space fantasy.
I can agree with that. Yeah. Cause you got the Force and all of that.
You got the Force, and it's a little bit woo-woo, right? Like it's definitely got this like alternative religious overtone of like the Force is in and around everyone. Yeah, there's midi-chlorians, and there's kind of this like quasi real world.
We don't like talking about midi-chlorians.
So it's just you either have it or you don't. But then if everyone has it, I don't know. It doesn't quite hold as well. So I can accept Star Wars, and I appreciate and love Star Wars, quite a bit. But to me, it's not sci-fi. It is space fantasy. I enjoy watching it. I loved it. I'll be honest, Jar Jar was probably my like least favorite character. But if you're going to introduce young kids into the universe and keep things going, I got to give them props for going out on a limb and experimenting. So.
Yeah. And actually like getting into Star Wars just a little bit here, but I remember growing up, and we heard about the prequels coming out and we're like, yeah, the prequels are going to be awesome. They're going to be great. And then they turned out to be these movies that like are pretty literally cringeworthy. Especially the second one. Just the writing was horrible, but then we were going to get a new trilogy. And it's like, oh, all right, this is going to be great. And it's like, I think that they were good movies as standalone movies, but then you put this new trilogy up against the prequel trilogy and you're like, man, those prequels weren't too bad as far as like just a consistent story. The writing was
I think that's the
atrocious,
biggest challenge. Well, and then too, there was other problems with. Now, I'll be perfectly honest. I haven't read the books, but the complaints I've heard from a lot of people is that the Star Wars canon is so vast and varied that to pick a consistent theme necessitated throwing out a whole bunch of categories of Star Wars.
Yeah, the books kind of, because they picked up right at the end of Return of the Jedi and went on their own journey, which Joanna's read a fair amount of those books and were very good. And, you know, basically Disney kind of went, yeah, we're just going to say that those are stories within the Star Wars universe. Like, this is a story that Han and Leia may have told to their kids about the adventures of Luke Skywalker, but they weren't actually the adventures of Luke Skywalker.
So it's the mythology within the Star Wars mythology, in a sense.
But then now they're talking about how, like, they may do the same thing with the new trilogy they made because people dislike it.
Yeah.
It's like,
but budgets had to be met in order to justify the acquisition costs. I think that's the hard thing. Is you have very select groupings of Star Wars fan categories. Like it's certain. Yes. Some people will appreciate Jar Jar. Some people are expecting Emperor Palpatine in a very dark series of like, you know, like there's just like totally different genres.
What really hurt the new trilogy is having the different directors and not having kind of a consistent story that they wanted to tell. Like if you had been able to tie in more of a consistent theme between the three movies, I think it would have done a lot better. But
yeah, but I will say they redeemed themselves with Mandalorian. I've thoroughly appreciated pretty much every episode of Mandalorian. I thought that was done really
fantastic.
Well. So
yes,
I think I mean, they pulled in a good, like, you know, why is there the hate for the androids? You know, what's going on there? And it's just a fun story to follow along with. So it's Space Cowboy, you know, so it's got a little bit of that Western type feel.
Totally.
It's good and solid. So
definitely. So anyways, after sitting down and watching Edge of Tomorrow or Live, Die, Repeat, depending on if you saw it in theaters or on VHS or DVD or digital, I guess. I was thinking it'd be fun to sit down and talk about each of our top favorite sci-fi movies. To just to see where your brain is at when it comes to sci-fi. Because I enjoy watching sci-fi movies with anybody, but I figured this would be a fun podcast to do. So I'll start.
All right.
That way, you know, because we'll work our way slowly up our list from 5 to 1, and that way I'll let you have the final say on what the best sci-fi movie is. But I'm going to kick it off with Terminator at my number 5 spot. I really like I really like time travel movies, and that one I think did it really well. A lot of, you know, I do like action movies. I think at the end of the day, I like the kind of heady ones as well, probably a touch more. But that one is just kind of a classic sci-fi movie that I don't know. When it was released, it wasn't actually received very well. And I don't remember what it was that kind of made it more popular. I think it was the second one, the Judgment Day, the second one that was just a really, really good sequel that really helped propel that one out. So
I'm looking into this here too. So I didn't realize this, but apparently I didn't realize James Cameron was the director of this, but this launched James Cameron's film career. And then also apparently it was solidifying Schwarzenegger's status as a leading man character. So this is Wikipedia here.
Yeah.
And apparently in 2008, it was selected by the Library of Congress for preservation in the National Film Registry as culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. So I gotta say, that's some pretty good props right there.
Yeah.
You make it in for all time. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Did I don't know. I don't want to give away movies that are further on each other's list. So I want to ask if this was on your list, but saying yes or no might give things away. So I'm gonna withhold that question, and
Okay.
we'll see where it goes.
Okay.
But anyways,
Well, I did a little bit of a cheat on my list here. I'm kind of looking at
uh-oh.
it because here's the thing. I'm not just a movie guy. I love TV series. I'm a sucker for just being dragged into this eternity
Oh man, you went
of
shows?
binge
Oh my
watching.
goodness.
So
Okay. Okay.
I'm including two TV series in my list of top movies because they're that good.
You know, you realize, movie and TV is different, Jack. Just
I
to
understand, but
clarify
this is
here.
sci-fi, and I live for sci-fi as far as my movie watching goes, and action adventure. So,
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, go ahead.
all right. So I'm just throwing this out there now. I realize Stargate is a total copycat of the Star Trek series in terms of the 5-man away team, but now the movie was absolutely horrible. Okay, the original movie was like at the top of cringe worthiness, but SG1 was a very solid series.
You're not going to get any complaints from me. I love, like, that was the first series, and I might be stealing from your thunder here a little, but it was one of the first shows that really had a continuing storyline, really set it apart at that time.
They did a really good job. I think they copied a lot. So like if I'm kind of like thinking like I think it's a copy of Star Trek Enterprise in a lot of ways where it's like you get the group of people, they go on a little adventure. What was great about that was SG1 specifically kind of setting it up. Like, I mean, obviously the movie set the basic plot concept up, but they did a good job of like, here's this universe. It's very much grounded in the real world. And this again goes back to like what I like about sci-fi was that it's grounded in the real world. They even had like a whole origin story for humanity, which I thought was pretty cool. So, like where it's like, how did humans get here? Fully intelligent, evolved with, like that kind of concept there. And it's like, well, they just, they were brought here by, in the Stargates by the ancients was like kind of this thing. And it like brought in this cool, like galactic level storyline and like how the planets were connected. And they, came up with advanced wormhole technology. And then each episode could be an adventure of you don't know what you're going to get on the other side of the gate. Like, is it going to be a hostile alien species that's far more technologically advanced, or is it a bunch of hillbillies that are subservient to some more advanced alien race, or is it just undiscovered and you can kind of sneak in and it's just a filler plot episode? So
yeah, they did a really great job with that, and they did have a couple movies. Now I think they were direct to DVD movies.
yes.
So maybe we could wrap in the movies there, but
okay. So if we're pulling in, the thing is that the movies fit in directly. I think is around season 8 of SG1. Season, I don't remember exactly where Atlantis came in too.
Yeah,
but I think they were at the peak of their production budget. Is they're running 2 simultaneous TV series. Then everything died off, and then they
tried to kick off Stargate Universe, and that
Universe, and that one was kind of cool too. It was dark, but it was also a little bit of a soap opera-y kind of feel. So I think they did some experimentation there. I don't think it performed as well, but what was cool about Universe and Atlantis was then they expanded it from just one galaxy to multiple galaxies, drastically increasing the storylines. Not that, I mean, a galaxy is ridiculously huge to begin with, but I think it opened the audience's perspective to like, hey, we can experiment in a totally different, storytelling genre and whatnot, and add new problems to solve, like ridiculously longer travel durations. So.
Yeah, I watched, I think, one episode of Universe. I've seen, I don't think even one episode of Atlantis, but SG1, I mean, we have the full DVD set downstairs.
Yeah.
So not Blu-ray, DVD. So yeah, it's a solid pick. So not a movie. Going to say that again, not a movie, and we'll bring that up again. We're going to bring that up again the next time you bring something up on your list like that, Jack. But
yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Given that you broke the rules there, I'm going to go ahead and break your rules by putting Star Wars at number 4 on mine.
You can put Star Wars at number 4. I will totally accept that because it's a debatable point whether or not it's sci-fi, because it is, well, it's future from our tech perspective, but it did happen a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
I would argue in a parallel universe where the laws of physics are slightly different, but hey, that's that's more of a fine tuning concept there. So
yeah, I don't know. It was just such a, like, when you look back at the movies back at that time, like, I mean, there's a lot of movies that come out when you really kind of understand how movies are made, and then you see something completely different, and realize when a movie is a game changer in like your own generation. It's a little bit harder to look. I mean, unless you really watch a ton of movies from all different eras of cinematography, I guess you could say. It's hard to really understand the impact of a particular movie. Like what one that I watched a Netflix thing on the movies that grew up with us, or something like that. But basically, it was an hour-long thing on Die Hard, which I'm all about. I love Die Hard. But it was talking about how that was
greatest Christmas movies ever.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. But they were talking about how that was an absolute game changer, because not only did your leading man he wasn't like testosterone pumped, but they also incorporated a fair amount of humor into the movie. And like, if you look at like the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now, there is so much comedy and not necessarily testosterone, so it's, that movie changed the way that action movies were made pretty much forever, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think MCU really pulled that off well with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah.
Chris Pratt was fantastic. I think it was like a total, like, let's just try once again. Like it's the art, people taking artistic license and kind of being given the authority to run with it. And I think it's great, because I don't think everyone wants to be stuck into the same TV series. If everything that's being produced looks the same, like it's not going to be fun for anyone. I think it's better for audience, better for innovation. We gotta have more artistic diversity and sometimes you're going to get a winner. Guardians of the Galaxy was fantastic. And sometimes you're going to get a total dud. And that, it happens. So
yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy really came out of nowhere, especially for me. I remember, they'd released a few of those MCU movies. I think I talked about this recently maybe on here, but yeah, Guardians I saw it and I'm like, what are they doing? This looks ridiculous. And then within 5 minutes of the movie playing, I'm like, I am all in.
Yeah, totally. I do wish Groot had more than 2 complete sentences in the entire series.
It makes him special, Jack. It's what makes him special.
I know, but he's fully sentient, but just can't express himself. And that's just,
He's got all the facial expressions though. So
he does.
That's all you
This
need.
is true. This is true. Okay.
But yeah,
since you threw
so I put Star Wars
in there.
That was good. It has someone named Luke in it, so I'm obviously a sucker for that.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, that was one. And I didn't watch it real young when I was a kid. Like I actually was probably 9 or 10, as opposed to our children who are like 2 when they first see that one now. So but I remember just being kind of like the ending and it was like, is there more? Like Darth Vader's still alive. And my parents being like, oh yeah, there's more of these. I'm like, can we watch it? So that one has always been pretty high on my list. So
okay, I'm going to throw two in the same category here. Since you threw Star Wars in, I can't not throw in Spaceballs.
Spaceballs. Oh my gosh, that was Mel Brooks, right? That's a Mel Brooks movie?
Yeah, Mel Brooks, parody of Star Wars and a variety of others as well. Apparently, I didn't realize that they're also parodying Alien and Planet of the Apes, so I'm gonna have to rewatch this to see what elements are.
I had
maybe the original Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, I feel like there was something. I don't remember all of it. Yeah, I haven't watched it in a while. I've been wanting to watch it with Zach, but the language is a little steep for him still. So
sure, yeah.
Nice. Okay, so was that your number? That's your number 4. That's what you said?
Yeah, this is 4A. 4B is Idiocracy. Idiocracy is the greatest documentary of humanity of all time.
That
is both sci-fi and documentary of present time and our trajectory as a society.
I have only seen that once, but watching that movie, it was bizarre. It was like, wow, this is, and like looking back, like over the last 4 years, shall we say, it's like, oh my goodness, this feels like we're heading in that direction. Like,
yeah, I'm just gonna leave that one there. I'm not gonna comment too much on that, but that's my 4A and 4B.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll jump to number 3 on my list then, and that is Contact.
Okay. I haven't seen that one in a very long time.
I watch that one probably at least once a year.
Okay.
I really like that one.
I find I don't watch most movies more than once, maybe twice.
Oh man, see, I love rewatching movies. I don't know why, but it's like I have to give it enough time where I don't remember everything. Because I mean, I've seen Contact probably a dozen times, but I can't watch it like, because the example here comes from Lord of the Rings, where I watched the Lord of the Rings way too many times when it first came out. And now, I mean, I love the movies, but I have a hard time watching them. Just because I literally know every line and, you know, of every sound of the whole movie, and it's just not fun anymore. So I want to make sure that I don't do that with other movies. I still love Lord of the Rings, but I want to make sure that I don't ruin other movies for myself as well. But
sure. Yeah. You're saying you don't have the entire soundtrack memorized of Contact, what you do of Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I just love the like, part of what I really liked about that one was, you know, it's how the whole thing kind of got turned on the main character's head, where everything is all about science and data and fact, and then at the end of the movie she has to tell everyone to take it on faith that what the experience she had was real. And actually one of the pieces that they left in at the end was the 9 or 19, I forget how many hours of static. See, I haven't watched it too recently, so I don't remember the exact amount of hours. But I don't know, I just thought it was a really interesting take on how first contact could be. And I mean, that wasn't even really first contact. That was more just like I don't know. I mean, the whole movie's called Contact, so I'm sure that the implication is that it's supposed to be first contact. But
so the one thing that's kind of striking my mind here is when you're talking about, like, you kind of have to take the story. Was it this or was it that, like, kind of thing? Was Life of Pi. That one, not at all sci-fi at all, but I solidly enjoyed that movie, with the plot building up, this crazy storyline, and then at the very end, you're kind of left with a, well, which story do you like better? You know, like,
I haven't seen it actually, so
we have to watch it now. I'm terribly sorry. I ruined some key plot points there, but that feeling of it is absolutely incredible. So, and it does kind of remind me how some of the, like, family stories, like, seem to get, you know, like, bigger over time, or like you hear people telling stories and, like, then you hear the other person tell it and it's like not at all what the story was. You're like, well, which one was it? You know, it's probably something somewhere in between, but I like movies like that too, where you're kind of left wondering, like, I wonder which one it is. And you're kind of just left thinking about that.
Okay. So what you got at number 3?
Okay. So number 3, Space Pocahontas. I mean, Avatar. So I like that one. It was a solid, like, from like the traditional definition of, like, what a sci-fi should be, which is like a critique on society or some aspect of society, going all the way back to, like, Frankenstein, right? But like, it's I think it was a good critique on, like, hey, we probably shouldn't mine the crap out of our planet and destroy it. And the other part that I liked about it was a critique on, like, the healthcare system. Like, his brother's doing super great, gets killed as a scientist, and then he doesn't have working legs and stuff like that. But if he goes on this mission, the company will pay for his health rehabilitation and he'll be able to walk again, was kind of like the promise. And so, like, I think that's a good critique on where we are as an American society of like, you have the health wealth haves and the health wealth have nots. And so I think that's a good critique on like both, like you don't want to destroy the planet and hey, we've got some like deep societal problems that it'd be cool if we could work towards solving those in a manner that like makes sense and you reduce the have nots in that sense. So that one, I liked it from that standpoint of like, it's a bit of a thinker, and it definitely like, while it's cast, I think they set it around 400 years into the future. The problems that the society is facing then are similar, just less so than what we're facing today. Like we don't have epic levels of pollution like they do there. Those kind of problems. So I liked it from that standpoint. It was a critique, and it makes you think about like where you're at today.
Yeah, I remember watching that in theater, and one of the big things there was it was one of the first movies that really did 3D well. In the theater.
Well, the colors, they were exquisite.
Yes. So that was a lot of fun to watch that one in theaters. I remember really enjoying it, but never wanting to go back to watch it again for a long time.
Oh, I've watched it. This is one I've watched a bunch of times.
So this is one that this is one that I actually went back and rewatched. I want to say a couple months ago, and I liked it a lot more than I remember liking it previously. Just the graphics are great for the time. I really enjoy, and it was more than, I feel like it was more than this, because that was always my comment is it was space Pocahontas, and I think there's definitely an aspect to that, but it wasn't as pronounced as I remembered. There was definitely a lot more of, like you were talking about, like the environmental stuff going on. But yeah, that's a solid pick. It's a solid pick.
Yeah,
I like that. It was a good movie. So
yeah, I'm looking here too. Stephen Lang, I got to give him. He gets the like top. I just like the role that he played. And this was also similar in Live, Die, Repeat. Like I felt like the character in there totally was like inspired by Stephen Lang's actor as a character that, what was he? Colonel Miles Quaritch in Avatar. I just felt like he had such a unique, like strong military machismo type.
Yeah.
Hey,
totally.
like here's these scars, you better listen to me, otherwise you're dead kind of, mentality of like, I thought he carried the role well. It was very believable. So I got to give him props there.
Yeah. Yeah. That was he did well with that.
Yeah. So I like that. All right. What was your number two?
So my number two is Jurassic Park. I have always
Michael Crichton.
Yes, I have always loved dinosaurs. Got the T-Rex skull here on my mic. But that was one, like that movie right there was like the definition of my youth. Like that movie, I loved it. Oh yeah, so
the arm
much.
wiggling in the cage as they're pulling, electroshocking the Velociraptor. It's an image that doesn't leave your mind. Like you watch that, absolutely terrifying as a kid.
Yes.
Like, I'm sure if I have my kids watch that, like we're gonna be dealing with nightmares probably for like a couple of weeks. Might be worth it just so she can watch it. Totally too young for the first Jurassic Park.
Yeah, and I mean there's a lot of pieces that I really liked about that movie. One of them is the fact that a lot of the graphics still hold up really well. I mean, there's a few of the CG dinosaurs when they're real big that don't hold up too well, but like pretty much the whole T-Rex attacking the Ford Explorers, that whole set was just brilliant. And I don't know, you got Ian Malcolm in there, Jeff Goldblum, Life Finds a Way, just total.
Yeah, so there's some great lines in there. Yeah, Jeff Goldblum he played the role really well. Who was the scientist who brought the stuff inside of the shaving cream? Like there's some comedy in there too
Oh
leading up
yeah,
to it.
Dennis Nedry. I can't remember his
Yeah,
actual name. He's
yeah. Dennis, that's right.
yes,
Nobody cares. Say nobody cares. Like
yes,
at this cantina. Like,
yes, exactly. Dotson.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a dinosaur movie. And I had never even really realized this. We did let Zach watch that one recently, and when he watched it and I watched it with him for the first time, it was like, I think this, like, I realized a lot more. This is sci-fi and horror. Like, this
It
is
is.
pretty much a horror
It
movie.
is, yeah.
So, and I had never picked up on that because, there's a piece of me that as a kid, like, yes, there were scary parts, but the majority of the film, that scene where Alan Grant walks or rides up in the Jeep and he's pointing at the brachiosaur and he's just like sitting there stunned. It's like, it's
Yeah.
a dinosaur. It's like, I was like that the whole movie. So, so
Yeah.
I didn't
No,
really
it's
take in the fact that it was a horror movie until much, much later in my life.
yeah. Well, and what's so great about that one is they really do pull you into they've got a good storyline. The science of it is believable enough. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not so far-fetched. Like, yeah, it's futuristic, especially at that time. It's like right on the cusp of like computational genomics type of work of like, hey, I wonder if like we go here, like this is amazing. Just mix a couple of things together, and yeah, that's totally how it's going to work. And
Mm-hmm.
boom, you just use the eggs, and just keep the eggs warm, and they'll hatch. That's it. Bada bing, bada boom, dinosaurs, right? And then it's like, oh wait, we just unleashed life in a way that we totally didn't expect, and we couldn't contain it. And whoopsies. So
Yeah, and it's
that
an
right there
excellent.
again is like the ultimate sci-fi commentary of like, be careful of the technology you're tinkering with because you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, and I think a lot of movies, they'll show the cool side, but then the fact that there's that a lot of critique on what's going on within it as well. So it's kind of I feel like if it was a pure horror, pure action movie, there's a lot less of that. A lot less lines like Goldblum's line was that they were so preoccupied with whether or not they didn't stop to think if they should, like, kind of lines. So I think having, and especially having, bringing in dinosaur experts, and then the dinosaur experts are the ones saying you shouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
Is what was interesting, and it's fun to watch. And the newer Jurassic World movies, I've enjoyed them enough, but I feel like that Jurassic World was it was more of a I mean, I think you could definitely make a case that all the Jurassic Park movies are basically monster movies, because they're not truly dinosaurs. But I feel like when they re-engineered the dinosaur for Jurassic World and did that, they really tipped the scales from it being a dinosaur movie to just a pure monster movie. And like they tried to bring back some of the, like, oh, it's so amazing, like that Alan Grant moment where he first sees the brachiosaur. They tried to bring some of that feeling back in, but it was hard because they were also playing so hard that that new, like, dinosaurs aren't cool anymore. You have to come up with something new, and it was all about business as opposed to science. So, I mean, I have enjoyed,
That's
and
the hard
Chris
thing
Pratt is
too.
great, but
If you're to, the hard thing too is if you're going to run like first Jurassic Park, absolutely innovative. The problem there is like, okay, life made a way. They abandoned the island. Then the next one is what, a couple years later in the timeline, they come back. Everything's still thriving. Things have changed a bit.
it was a different island. Was a different
Was
island.
a different island?
Yeah.
Different island. Okay.
Yeah. Second
right,
island where they were growing the dinosaurs. Yes. It was a dinosaur nursery, basically.
All right. Fair enough. And then, but then the storyline just goes in, okay, now it's like military control, and let's use this as a military thing. And like, we're going to be able to use these dinosaurs for as super soldiers kind of thing. Like that storyline's like tried and true. It's been like it's a solid movie plot line.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, it just changes to an action adventure point at that point in time. To me, it's no longer sci-fi. It's like that then is just action adventure horror in the sense of like people getting just absolutely obliterated by dinosaurs. I didn't
Yeah.
feel like they were great movies. Don't get me wrong. They're great. The first one was the best. There was no topping it at that point in time.
Well, and
Like if they
especially
were
like,
just to leave it at that, it would have been complete anyways, as is, and you would have always wanted more there. And I think
mhm.
that's the hard part of like continuing a series is if you don't have it planned out as like a TV mega series or some big universe type of thing where you can really experiment with it, it's hard to one up your game.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and actually, going back to a different movie on the list, kind of on that point, that was what George Lucas actually did when he made Star Wars. And, I always found it so odd that he started in the middle of that trilogy. But almost to your point, it's almost tragic that he had this movie in the middle of this huge plot line, and it got squandered on the prequels and this most recent series, even though he had this grand scheme for this large movie series that could have played out really well.
What was the one that came, the new one that came just before A New Hope in the timeline?
Oh, the one-off Rogue One?
Not Rogue One, no. The one that literally led up to the battle.
Oh, Revenge of the Sith?
The was Revenge of the Sith?
I think it's Rogue One. So you're talking about the one where literally they escape with the Death Star plans handed to Princess Leia and they're off.
Nah.
If you're talking,
I thought that one was really good. That was my only point.
It's a Trap is Return of the Jedi, my friend.
Was it Return of the Jedi? Okay, so then I'm like so out of touch on my Star Wars. I was embittered, I guess you could say.
You're gonna have to watch these.
I just can't. No. I have to watch them again. But Mandalorian redeemed the series. I will watch them again.
Yes.
On matter of principle.
Getting back to Jurassic Park though, one of the things that they really did on that movie that really did change the industry is that was right when CGI within movies was really starting to be a viable thing, and they really pushed the boundaries there with what the technology was able to do, because they had done some, I think Terminator 2 had a fair amount of computer graphics, and they used the same team that was from that movie, but they had actually started making some of the scenes as stop motion claymation basically, and they were going to use the old school, just like move the dinosaurs just a little bit, take another picture and do that through the whole thing, and that was going to be the way that they did basically the whole movie. But then in early production they shifted over and decided to go with the computer graphics, and what I find amazing there is some of the graphics in that movie, the CGI portions of it, still look better than a lot of the CGI that's put out today. Just the way that things move, or like the lighting. Maybe it's because they kept everything dark in those scenes. I don't know, but
I think they gave your eye just enough to understand what was going on, but not so much that you could like fully absorb it, I think. And then there was a lot of scenes that moved so fast. They just the strobe, so it's like a shock to your like system of like, the eyeball, the Velociraptor. You knew those giant teeth were gonna get someone, or you if you were in that movie. So like it was believable enough. Yeah, and the animatronics of that were absolutely incredible.
Yes.
And it was at that cusp of like computers were getting fast enough. Like, I feel like honestly, like trying to think of like what movies absolutely transformed computer graphics and just animation in there. I'm thinking like Lord of the Rings, was it Weta Studios? Was like huge on that. Star Wars, for its time. Even Independence Day, they did like the whole giant, like they lit the board on fire of the city. I think they held it vertically and just like that. And that's what they filmed, right? Like which also was an inspiration for how I nearly burned my parents' house down as a kid.
Oh my
We were
goodness.
making a video and we got a couple of gallons of kerosene or whatever it was. And, we had the camera set up and we get things going. My buddy Richard accidentally knocks over the kerosene onto our board that we had set up that we are going to light, for our project. And I calmly go inside the house and go, "Hey mom, do you know where the fire extinguisher is?" As calm as you can so as to not raise the alarm. But obviously my mom, picked up real quick on that. She comes outside with the fire extinguisher. She goes to spray it. Flames about the deck was a 2-story deck, so I guess about 18 feet high, went whoosh, like that,
Oh my gosh.
She goes and sprays the fire extinguisher, just kind of piddles out like it was like way past expiration or something, so the fire extinguisher is non-functional. And then anyways, no harm, no foul. The deck was a bit singed and we had the hose ready, but it was anyways.
Sounds like a great project.
Richard wasn't allowed to hang out with us for a little while. Yeah.
That's a great project.
Yeah.
Great
I was
project.
making movies a little bit as a kid. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
All right.
So I'm just going to warn you. I saw your kid's Star Wars movie, and just beware when they start getting into visual effects. If you don't teach them computers, they will. Explosions are fun. So.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. What's your number 2?
The Matrix, the first one, and only the first one.
Okay. That's a really good one.
Yeah. So here's what I liked about it. The concept, I've always I love learning things. I don't like the amount of time it takes to learn things. And so the scene where, he gets the spike of knowledge, basically, I'm going to call that the brain computer interface jabbed in the back of his head, is incredible. The very concept, just everything about that movie of they're living in a simulation, the age old question of, are we real or are we living in a giant simulation? Wachowski brothers what is reality? I think that was absolutely incredibly done at every level. It was up there with Inception in that same sense of, I feel like Inception was really kind of inspired from that of there's this whole other layer that you're existing within. The dilemma of ever advancing AI, of course, as the series evolves in there, and how do you deal with this epic, there's so many questions that come up within advancing AI, if we get to generalized AI super intelligence, I anticipate if it happens, it'll happen quick, and everything that will all of a sudden feel foreign. That's my anticipation. There's just so much societal level change that would happen there. It could be incredibly beneficial. It could be incredibly dangerous, but it's a super cool concept. So I think the Matrix pulled that off. And then I think they used the robots were harvesting humans as energy. How much more terrifying of an idea of you're living this happy simulation and then you're cattle, basically.
Yes.
It's just totally fascinating.
Battery. Yeah. Well, and and then that, really, and that question of, what is real, is it what's around you, or is it the, electrons that are firing in your brain? It's sometimes that question
in
just
consciousness, or that I remember medically, if you, I got an endoscopy done a while ago, and it was one of those things, they put you on fentanyl and Versed. It puts your brain in read only mode. And it's the weirdest thing. You wake up and I was having a conversation with my wife, and we're driving home, whatever. And then I wake up, I'm like, "Hey, where are you at?" She's like, "I already told you I'm hanging out with a friend." I'm like, "No, you didn't. You didn't tell me that. That's not true." Complete read only mode, right? And so the fact that we have generalized anesthesia, that we have these things and just inject the right chemicals into someone and their experience is completely altered. I don't know, consciousness, crazy, so much to learn in that area. I feel very ignorant on this topic. So, but it is one of those weird things of or I remember when I got my wisdom teeth pulled, that feeling of all of a sudden, you wake up and time has continued, but your perception of this moment and this moment are instantly stuck together, but
collapsed.
This multi-hour period has been collapsed into one. So anyways, I love time travel movies, things like that, because of these type of the feelings of you just you're under anesthesia or something like that. And then you wake up and time has continued on, but you're mental state was like frozen at a point in time. It's crazy.
Good stuff. Well,
Yeah.
I think we should talk about this more because my number one movie is The Matrix.
Oh, number one. Oh, well, now again, now my cheat here. This is my cheat because my number one is Star Trek as a series, as a complete context. They do everything. They do everything. And it is science fiction perfection. Full stop.
Okay, Star Trek. So
Star Trek.
if
Yeah.
you were going to pick one of them, since, yeah, because Star Trek is such a big thing. Like, it's been around for so long. It's been done well in many ways. What was your favorite series and what was your favorite show? Or movie,
Okay,
I'm sorry. What was your favorite series and what was your favorite movie?
Oh, it's tough.
I know,
like, okay, so
there's like so many versions of it because you got
okay,
Kirk,
fine. My favorite
Picard,
TV series
you got
at
the new
moment.
ones.
Yeah, my favorite TV series at the moment was Picard because watching Picard and seeing all these actors now that they're like mid to late life and like seeing them when they were originally on the TV, like they've aged, the story's moved on, the society's moved on, but it feels completely intact. Like I love that series. I think Picard, that's definitely my most favorite one. Discovery, I'm binging it right now. I'm on season 3 of that. It's good. The threads feel like they're a little bit pulled, and I'm not sure how they're going to resolve this whole like.
I haven't
you
watched
don't
any of
fart
it, so.
around with the timelines, like you just don't. And like I'm not sure how they're going to resolve this. This is this huge ethical problem that I'm at, which is like, okay, they've traveled forward in time to prevent the super intelligent AI from destroying all known life, because that's what the AI believes is the only way to fix things, basically, is that the problem is living things are not perfect, so therefore they need to be destroyed. Just a great concept. And then so they travel forward in time, but by doing so, they've preserved the universe, but the universe didn't continue on what they viewed as the ideal path, like the Federation ideals. And so
how does this work with the Prime Directive?
Well, right, that's the thing, right? There's the Prime Directive, there's there's so many different aspects of this. And then two, much of society is post-warp, but all the dilithium's been blown up, and so no one can really do faster than light travel, or at least it's now substantially more expensive and complex to do so. And the Federation's completely fallen apart. So do they travel back in time just enough where the AI threat's no longer a threat? The warp thing disaster hasn't happened, or do they cause it all? And inevitably, I'm sure they are going to have been the cause of millions of people's deaths in this great explosion. I'm sure that's what's going to happen, but I guess I'll soon find out. So,
okay.
Greatest movie. Honestly, I think the more recent movies that they did were really solid. I think they developed the character Spock well, and they made the series not so nerdy that like non-sci-fi folks could enjoy it, which I think is always cool when you're able to have a good movie that the fans enjoy, and yet you're also able to introduce a new audience. I think the new Star Trek movies did that effectively.
Yeah, I really like.
But again, those are like a series of movies, so
yeah,
that's not just one movie.
I mean, the Star Trek series in and of its, I mean, I know I've watched a lot of TNG, a lot of DS9, a lot of Voyager. I've seen all the movies at least once. The one movie that I thought was really interesting was Generations. Just from the like, I don't think it was like one of the best movies, but it was a really interesting movie in the way that they really did a good job of like handing off and giving a nod to the original Star Trek and kind of handing off to the next generation as well. And that's something that I'd kind of love to see, some kind of a tie-in. And I don't even know how you do it, but I mean, it's Star Trek. So I mean, you could make up some, some new wormhole that everybody goes through and they all end up, in some end game situation,
Yeah.
Which I think would be fun. But yeah, I really like that. The Into Darkness, Benedict Cumberbatch killed it as Khan. That was so good.
Yeah.
I loved that movie. That was really, really good. So yeah, I think, yeah, I think that's a solid pick as number one. Yeah. So, how about some runners up? Do you have some runners up on your list?
Okay, so let's see here. I wrote Inception on here. I'm not sure if we really talked about that one as one of my top ones. I pulled that out and
Yeah,
I
I pulled
replaced it with
that out.
Spaceballs.
I
But
pulled out Inception as well, mostly because I feel like it's almost a second version of The Matrix, and you touched on that.
yeah, I
So I
agree, and
totally
that's why I
agree.
was kind of like,
It's an
it's just
amazing movie. Like
it is,
it
it is.
was fantastic, especially watching it the first time. It was like, holy cow, this is just. I mean, Christopher Nolan does an amazing job with movies, which you still need to come over and watch Tenet at some point here.
That's true. Yeah, yeah, I
But
absolutely do.
yeah, Inception was on my honorable mentions as well. So
Yeah. I think too, Inception, I would almost put it in what was that one movie? I just watched it recently. It was kind of like a critique on drug abuse, and you weren't sure if like he was living as a drug addict or if he was not. It'll come back to me later when it was, but I almost feel like Inception, in the same sense, is a social critique on these people would go into Inception and they would live their life in the dream because the dream is more enjoyable than reality. And that's the critique on society that I think we have, which is that people who are seeking to live life through either alcohol or drug abuse are choosing that because it's more enjoyable than the reality that they're currently living in. And I think Inception, well, it wasn't directly a critique on that. It's that concept there that people are like, they go into this dream state because it's better, more fun, a better reality than the actual reality that they're living.
Well, and maybe you could even take that to like, especially with this COVID stuff this last year, of it being like the internet. You can spend so much time just hanging out on Twitter that you forget to go outside and, you know, take a walk in the sun and go sit down in the grass and just listen to the birds or something, you know, so something where you're kind of detached from reality because of this new technology, you know, kind of along the lines of that movie there, where you're just completely disconnected.
Yeah, and the movie that I was saying was with Bliss, with Owen Wilson in there.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, so
that
was the one. Yeah, that was the one that I was kind of thinking. It's not like, I mean, yes, it's sci-fi in that sense, but it's following that same critique of just like, you know, he's having to make this hard decision between one of two realities, and as the audience, you're trying to figure out what's going on, what's real, what's not. They set up a lot of the imagery in advance where you're just like, oh yeah, there's the drug abuse clinic. That's weird. And then like later, then he ends up going and walk, you know, like that all those kind of things in there where it's like that. It's almost like Train Spotting in a sense. That was more of a heroin movie, but like those type of things about like that dilemma.
Mm-hmm. So one of the ones that I had on my runner-up was Arrival. That one is by and large one of my favorite movies, actually, but I feel like it's kind of like how Inception is to The Matrix, Arrival is kind of to Contact. Admittedly, though, the fun twist with Arrival and the way that, you know, language changes your perception of time, like that whole thing is such a cool concept, that it was hard to not put it on my top 5. So I really liked it. So
fair enough.
Do you have any more on your runner-up list, or is that it?
No, I didn't write any down while I was thinking about top sci-fi movies.
So another couple that I have on is the Blade Runner movies. Have you seen those?
I saw one a long time ago, so I'm not like, my memory is not fresh on Blade Runner.
So the second one is, I think, one of the best sequels. I don't know. I'm trying to think of other, like, there's like Empire, there's Judgment Day. But as far as sequels, it's one of the best sequels in my mind, the Blade Runner 2049. We should watch it at some point. But I think what made those movies so good and really developed their following is the amount of questions they don't answer in the movie, because so much of it is left open-ended. And if you haven't seen it in a long time, there's a lot of details there that might not hit your memory banks. But
yeah, I think I'm just gonna need to watch it.
That's part of what makes of what I think makes a really interesting sci-fi movie is putting out all this really incredible content, but then not answering all the questions and leaving a lot open to the audience. Because kind of like with Coherence, what movie have we talked about more than Coherence? Because we talked about that for probably a couple weeks.
Yeah, well, it was such a good one. Like, it was like, and I like that one. It was just like, it's like, wait, I wonder about this. And then like it brought in, there's so much to it, right? Like, I don't want to give away too many points. If somebody hasn't seen Coherence, you need to see Coherence. I mean, that's the bottom line. Yeah, that one was great. So
I remember seeing it on a lot of lists because I like picking away at underrated sci-fi movies. And I saw that one so many times. It was like, strange things happen at a dinner party. And that's about all that it says. And it's like,
yeah, great. Sci-fi Babette's Feast. This sounds terrible.
Sounds so lame. And then like halfway through the movie, when like I picked up what was going on, it was like, oh my gosh, this is really interesting. And then it just keeps going down the rabbit hole, and it's like, oh, this is awesome. So that one was really fun.
Yeah, and that almost fits into the category of sci-fi horror as well.
Yes, I did not pick up on that, but when some of my other there were a couple people in my family that watched it as well, and we talked about it afterwards, and it was like, yeah, that was a really scary movie. And I was like, I didn't pick up on that at all. Like, when I think of horror, I think of like The Ring or Alien or something like this, where it's scary, but like there's definitely an aspect to horror movies that is just purely mental, that like it's kind of like a splinter in your mind, to call in the Matrix there. But that one did a great job of that.
They did. And I like that too. They had some ethical choices to be made of like, are you the good person or are you the bad person? Are you going to pursue the better life? What, there's just like,
well, and like at the end, like, I'll try not to give away too much here, but like at the end where, the main character, she's essentially roaming around, and it's like, you almost like, is she the bad person? But then you're seeing it from the bad person's perspective, and you're like, just because it's a bad person doesn't mean it's the worst person. And there is some empathy to be felt for the person who just wants to live in a better universe, or whatever you want to call it, and live in a better world. And it was incredibly interesting, because you're like, oh yeah, obviously that we're following the good people. And it's like, were we? it's so good. The one last one I did want to talk about, is Ex Machina. Have you seen that one?
I have not.
With Oscar Isaac, and has a lot to do with.
It's on my list of movies to watch. I keep seeing it show up again, like what you're talking about, on lists of like top sci-fi movies that people love. It's on there, and I'm like, oh, that one actually looks pretty good.
That one is the Turing test, where you basically see if you can pass off a robot as a human.
You got to click which one's the boat in the picture.
Kind of. But that's a whole movie built around that concept. And it was really, it's one of those ones that it doesn't give you as much of a mind warp as like Coherence, but there's still definitely an aspect of it where you're just kind of like thinking about it afterwards, and you're like, oh man, that's but it's a really great take on AI, the Turing test, and all of that. So we'll have to sit down and watch that one too, because that one's really good. But so if you were going to write a sci-fi movie, for the last year and what's going on in the world right now, what kind of a sci-fi movie would you write? Because there's basically. Go ahead.
Oh, well, okay. Did you see? I think was it Brad Pitt in the I think the movie was literally called Pandemic. Brad Pitt, yeah. What was it called? It wasn't Brad Pitt. Contagion. The Contagion. Who is in Contagion?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Okay, so you need to watch Contagion. I watched this. Amber absolutely hated this movie, and I loved it. So my buddy Donnie and I watched this movie, and it was a movie based off of I think the MERS virus, one of the 3 coronaviruses that have caused epidemics. And what is so on point about this movie is it confronts the problem of misinformation, disinformation, distrust of government, how things are being handled. No one wants to be responsible for the thing. There's good people fighting it. This is the movie. This is the prequel to the year 2020 and 2021.
Wow.
Like, that movie was so on point in so many ways. So if I were to make a movie about this year, that's the movie I would have made.
This would be the prequel.
It's Contagion. This is the prequel, and then I would build a Star Trek, hopey, happy, let's make the world a better place movie, kind of like the rebuilding of the world after the zombies have come and kind of taken over type of, like level of problem, or pandemic in this case here.
Interesting.
Because I'd do that, because you need to have a the kumbaya moment, and everyone comes together trying to make things better. So
yeah, I don't know. I feel like the whole, man, this one looks interesting. The whole like Big Brother aspect is something that I feel like, and maybe it's in this movie that you're already referencing. I'll have to take a look at it. But the whole Big Brother aspect and of, security versus freedom and that kind of stuff is, I feel, a really big piece of this. I don't know exactly how you would write a sci-fi movie based on that, but those are definitely some of the issues that I think would be good to include in a movie like that. Just with the way that, I feel like after 9/11, that was kind of the last time something really big happened in our country, kind of like this. There's been others. Okay, put it this way. I'm leading to something, and so I might be making statements that lead me to that, and I'm missing something here. But after September 11th, there were so many, Patriot Acts and information acts that were passed, and they just blew through Congress, and it was, never let a good tragedy go to waste when it comes to, the government making laws for you. And I feel like only now, very recently, when I started looking into Snowden, was seeing how incredibly intrusive the government has gotten with all of these, these here cell phones that everyone's got at least one of in their pocket these days. When I'm at work, I've got 2 of them.
I was very hesitant. I finally broke down and got the kids the Google Homes, right? One for our youngest, one for our oldest. And it's like, which actually I find that experience incredibly frustrating. We're about to go back to CD players because while the device, we'll get back to the Snowden and all that comment here, but I just want to provide a commentary on our experience of using Google Home. So if anyone who's an engineer at Google,
it's account management,
please
right?
make this a better experience. But Google Home. Okay. So if you're like, okay, Google, play whatever on Spotify, it links up to my Spotify account on the Google account that the person, based on voice recognition, is playing it. And then if I go into my daughter's room and say, okay, Google, do this. Well, guess what happens? The 2-year-old, Emmett, loses out on the Spotify because it transitions, whatever I was playing there, and it yanks away his story. So like the bedtime routine is very much, so I ended up having to create like a full adult Spotify account. Another problem here. I had to create the adult Spotify account for Sophia so she can tell Google to play what she wants to play, but I don't necessarily want her having access to Tupac and all that kind of, the foul mouth music too.
Yeah.
Or which could just be randomly thrown into the playlist or whatever. It's like, yeah, sure, you can turn off explicit, whatever. But yeah, anyways, it's these devices are trying to be more intelligent than they should. Like I want to be able to just specify at a device level, this device is pinned to this Google account, regardless of whose voice you hear it,
Yeah.
and this one's pinned to that device. And that way it just works. But no, it has to be more complicated. So yeah, the microphones everywhere. And we also saw that with, was it the Samsung or was it the Sony TVs? That was leaked a while ago too, that their microphones were always on and always transmitting.
I haven't heard that one.
So yeah, there was a 2016 maybe, like it was quite a while ago.
Okay.
There was like security vulnerabilities with the devices. Microphones were always on, transmitting to maybe their manufacturer, maybe some malicious third party who just happened to, be pulling, sniffing the network for vulnerable devices or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's a big problem, right? Then two, at a personal consumer level, like how many people are changing their default username, their admin password on their Wi-Fi router at home, right? They install the thing, ISP gives it to them, they just keep it on defaults, and they just look on the back printout of whatever the sticker is for their random Wi-Fi password. But have they changed the admin credentials? Probably not. So like, I can't imagine how many local networks are under constant surveillance or being snooped, either due to obvious misconfiguration problems or 0-day vulnerabilities, or just maybe a 300 on something that was never updated, because who's going to remember to update their Wi-Fi router's firmware?
Yeah. But it's like, yeah, I mean, people understanding the technology that they're using, that's, I mean, even I don't understand a lot of the stuff that I'm using to the extent that I probably should. I do have those passwords and whatnot you mentioned, like locked down pretty well on all of my devices. But I know that there's plenty that aren't, and it's pretty easy to snoop around on those. Well, I'm assuming it is. I haven't actually looked into it, but if you're not going to change your password, you're going to make it pretty simple. But yeah, like the concern on kind of getting back to why I brought up 9/11 is, you had a situation where the world went through a very traumatic event, I should say. And there were a lot of laws that were passed to enable security. And here we are with this coronavirus relief bills. And there's so much stuff that, a lot of, the media and the politicians, they'll make the bills about what they want it to be about. But really, there's so many little pieces of legislation that are attached to that. I mean, a perfect example, one that I'm actually quite excited about, is the fact that, and actually the 90 days is probably up, but there was something in one of the bills where after 90 days, the government has to release all their unclassified files on UFOs.
Yeah.
Once this bill is passed. And so, I mean, you're getting a stimulus check, and you're going to get your alien information in 90 days.
That's right.
But, there's a lot more, probably far more sinister, closer to along the lines of what we saw with like Patriot Act and all the observation that's probably thrown in there that,
well, yeah, and there's other budgets
nobody
that just
cares.
Yeah, it'll be passed by a wink, a nod, and a handshake. I mean, was it Nancy Pelosi? A lot of people's left-leaning superhero is like one of the big sponsors of Patriot Act and continuing supporting that system of an extreme version of government oversight that, like, generally speaking, the United States has been the global good guy. When it comes to policing democracy and maximizing freedom for individuals, like generally speaking, we're pretty good. There are a lot of whoopsies that occur or bad military calls or otherwise that also put us in the position of, not necessarily being the good guys as well. So
Yeah.
I think, and that's the hard part is like, okay, I remember like, okay, we have military authorization to use our drones to shoot someone in a foreign country, but we don't have the authorization to shoot a terrorist in our own country. And I think that's good that we don't have the authorization to do it in our own country. But if we think the person's bad enough based on our own investigation, we could do that in some other country's foreign soil. And like, there are some like real ethical concerns about like how much capability should we have to tinker without more oversight? And like, it's an impossible question to answer, because it's like there are military reasons why you need to respond to something today very quickly, and oversight is going to lose the edge. Like if this something runs through oversight, you're going to lose the opportunity to take out the bad guy. Like, just plain and simple. That is just what will happen. So
You sound like Captain America in that movie, the Civil War MCU movie.
yeah,
The safest hands
and
are
that's the
still
hard
our
part, right?
own.
It's like, I want to believe that we're the good guys, and in a lot of times I think we are, but I also realize that this is a social, economic, military organization that's ultimately led by fallible humans, and you hope that the good outweighs the bad. And it's like, it's a very precarious feeling to be in. It's like,
Well, and it's hard too when let's say we go in and try and do the good thing, and we give these people freedom. Well, if that culture isn't ready, if there's an instant power vacuum, if that freedom creates an instant power vacuum, then that just creates
you just
chaos.
replace one warlord with another. I mean, installation of Saddam Hussein had unintended consequences. We have had a number of CIA-led operations in South America that have had unintended consequences. We have these like economic hitmen involved to like move things to our leanings. Yeah, sure. Sometimes, most of the time, let's say it works out in our favor, but sometimes things don't work out in the favor of the locals who, you're trying to get rid of one bad guy, but maybe we've taken on the Mayan or the Aztec concept of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And it's like, well, maybe they are today, but long-term they might not be.
Yeah.
So,
and have you seen, I think it was Oliver Stone who made it, The Untold History of the United States, or of the US.
I have not seen that one. No.
That's an interesting one because it takes a step back from America being the good guy all the time. And it doesn't paint us in an it's not incredibly positive. It's not incredibly negative either. It's just a little bit more of a realistic look, and points out the fact that, basically, hindsight in these situations is always very helpful for filmmakers who want to critique. But paints a lot of the decisions made a lot more on probably political ambitions and personal vendettas, maybe, or anything, personal politics, than it should have been at the time. So it was an interesting watch because it
so
made
they made this into a movie here as well, huh? Or
I don't know
it
if
was
it's a movie. Oliver Stone's made quite a few pretty great movies, kind of tackling.
Okay, so I'm looking this up on here, and I also see there's an audiobook as well. There's a companion book that goes along with it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, one of the simple examples would be World War II, And, who won World War II? Well, we like to, maybe the Battle of Britain was a big thing, but, us storming the beach and then taking the fight to the Nazis was big. And then it was the atom bomb that really kind of ended everything. But his take was a lot more that it was actually, I think it was Stalingrad. But basically the Russians who actually won World War II for the world as a whole. Just because of, and, a lot of that came from, at the time, what was Hitler's worst decision he ever made from a strategic standpoint.
That's when he moved north, right? Up.
Well, he opened a second front. He'd been basically playing nice with the Russians for a long time. And then right before winter was like, yeah, screw you guys. I'm going to attack you too, because I'm so powerful. And it ended very poorly for millions of people. It wasn't good. But, that decision led to essentially the Russians being able to knock out so much of the forces of the Nazis that it changed the course of the war. Well,
you send a bunch of people up into icy terrain. One, that's difficult terrain to be in on a good day, just as a hiker. But if you're not able to get constant supplies at a very fast rate efficiently, or if the trains break down or any supply chain malfunction occurs, like you're in a rough spot. So I like the movie. It was 1917, the World War I movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. You said it was really good.
It was really good. It felt like the way they directed it is it feels like it's all one single movement. So the way they do the cuts and stuff, it feels like there's no cuts. Like it's a continuous stream.
I started getting interested in that once, about like single takes, because I got turned on to that idea in the Daredevil series, where there's a couple of these hallway fight scenes where it's like 3 or 4 minutes and it's pure action, and it's people literally like running, jumping, kicking, punching, and they're like swapping out stunt doubles, like just with really clever takes. But I'd heard that about 1917, that it was intended to basically be a single take the whole time, which makes it a really interesting, really different movie. Because a lot of times you go for the single take and it's like, oh my gosh, it's a 5-minute single take. Like there was one in Children of Men, which was a really interesting movie, but they had like buildings blowing up, hundreds of extras, and it was all a single take that lasted like 5 minutes. It was impressive. But hearing that about 1917 makes me want to watch it.
Yeah, I'll watch it with you. I was planning on buying it just because I really enjoyed it. It's a bit gruesome, but I was planning on buying it. I don't buy.
No, it's a war movie. I mean,
yeah, exactly. So going back to, it's so interesting about the whole coronavirus pandemic that we're in right now, coupled with combining like the concept of government oversight or perhaps a more autocratic style of rule, is that if you were to pick a virus that's like the most dangerous virus to a free democracy, it would be the coronavirus. Like in the way it's set, the way it behaves, it's like, as Americans, we don't want to put on our mask. We don't like our government shouldn't be telling us to do what we should be doing. Like,
America,
you want us to comply? Like, seriously? Like, what is this? Like, I'm not, and like, I think that's the challenge here, is that like, if you're to pick like a way to break apart the union, it's all of a sudden have the union have to work together on one thing, get everyone on the same page.
We politicize things way too easily. There's a lot about this pandemic that should not have been politicized. And I think some of that, was going to happen regardless of who was on office. But I think with Trump in office, it made it, everybody's tensions were a lot higher than they usually would be, and made it a lot more challenging.
Yeah, I mean, like you would have, no matter what, had the anti-vaxxers. I mean, you're always going to have a small percentage of the population that falls into that camp. You're always going to have the conspiracy theorists that are going to, say, oh, this for sure came from a lab in China. You're always going to have like these fringes of society in there. But yeah, no, it's an incredibly challenging problem that we have right now. Right. And then now too, like, right, it's it's spread enough that there's enough mutations out there that, evolution's taking its course on this. And unfortunately, there's a lot of variance in this. And hopefully, we can get the vaccines, out fast enough into arms that, the next variant that comes out.
So far, all the vaccines seem to be dealing with the variants fairly well from what I've seen. I know that there's some that are, some more potent strains, but I haven't heard about any that have fully gotten around the vaccines that have been developed yet, which is good, because you get that, and then we're back to square one almost. We're back to the start of 2020.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I was doing some research here. You had a comment on our original thing, which was like, should we talk about the Chinese lab hypothesis? And I found it absolutely fascinating. It is Dr. Redfield. I think he's former Dr. Redfield, or he's
former director of the CDC.
Yeah, former head of the CDC. Still pushing this Chinese lab hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen evidence out there that's compelling to me that it did come from there.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the question that's being raised isn't necessarily like, but the hard part is it's all going through the Chinese government, and so they like to keep things very much on the wraps. And I mean, if you want to talk about a big brother, taking this back to a sci-fi movie that you're creating, the Chinese government would be the big brother, because I mean, they want to be the world power by 2050 or whatever it is. They want to be the new US, and they're doing it through a lot of controlling their people. And so, the question is whether or not those WHO investigators had enough access to enough information to really be able to assess this. And the fact that the lab leak hypothesis is just being brushed under the rug and not given any analysis, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of people who are not saying they think the lab leak is the likely cause, but just that it should be more fully investigated. But if you were going to go full sci-fi, taking it back to sci-fi movies here, you could say that what the Chinese government is doing is, because I mean, they're spying on the world. They just released this virus. Maybe they're cooking up some virus that they can release to the whole world, and they're the only ones with the antidote. That would be an interesting. I don't know what kind of a movie that would be. That'd be a bit sci-fi and dystopian future, I suppose. But yeah, it's difficult to be able to say this definitely came from animals or bats or any other of those theories. Some of the food farms, the wildlife food farms that China was using and then instantly shut down, which, if there's a part of me that sees that as, oh, they shut these farms down, so even if it did come from one of those farms, now we'll never know because they just killed all their, raccoon dogs or whatever they've got going on there.
Sure. Yeah. So I was doing a little bit of research leading up to this because I have a passing interest in bioinformatics. If I were to pick an alternative career that I would pursue, or maybe as a second major career push later on in life, I might pursue a PhD or something in bioinformatics. That could be pretty interesting. So I pulled up a research paper. This is from the European Review for Medical and Pharmacological Sciences.
That sounds really impressive.
I know, right? Yeah. So if you allow screen sharing for the sake of this here, and then I also tried to replicate the paper's results in here.
So I'm planning on putting this on YouTube, so I don't know about screen sharing. So
okay, well, there's only like one
audio.
chart in here, so I can do a.
Okay.
I'll zoom it in, and then the resolution should be okay.
Okay.
and then we can reference the appropriate materials too, because that's then people can poke at it on their own and have fun. So
well, we'll need to describe this because this is primarily a podcast, Jack. So we need to make sure that we're describing it well.
Yeah, sounds good. So on April 13th, 2021, this same person is redoing this lecture on bioinformatics. What was that? Yeah, this is coming up again. So I watched it once on a previous version, but they got another one coming up here in a little bit here. But you can find it on O'Reilly's Learning. So I pay for that because I do like a lot of, being able to pay monthly for a bunch of computer science books is a lot cheaper than buying the $60, $70 books every time you need to read like one paragraph in something interesting. So, but this person here, Janani Rangarajan, so apologies if I mispronounce, but she was heading up a introduction about informatics, and what that was. One sec here. Getting a phone call there. What she did was she went through the genetic sequence and find similarity of SARS-CoV-2 against a variety of known coronaviruses across like bats, pangolins, human ones. There are like 8 different like known ones that are like natural in the world that all infect humans. Is a genetic sequence comparison, and then also the lab-made coronaviruses. So, and in there, basically, I'm gonna really shortly summarize this because I am not at all an expert in this, but the rat G13 bat coronavirus, which you can look up on there on the gene bank and through the NCBI's, you can like use their tools to like, here's like, you look up these different viruses by their accession number, or you can actually paste in the DNA base pairs if you want, like the A's, the T's, the C's, and the G's, the full sequence of it, since that's all public and globally available. Anyways, the rat G13 bat coronavirus is 96.12% aligned with SARS-CoV-2. And only like, it looked like there are 2 sections. So when I ran this here, can I hit the screen share button?
Yeah.
It says host has disabled it here.
I did. I didn't know I did that.
You just have to click the enable button. Anyways, I'll keep yakking while you're hunting for that. Anyway, so 96.12% identity is what they call that with this rat G13 bat COVID virus, versus the artificial ones out there. I think the closest one that they ran was 82% similar, which was this other one.
I'm sorry, 82%
and then a handful
from
of
a
other
lab?
artificial ones. They were, what was that?
82% from a lab? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, from a lab. The closest one was 82% identical sequences, because what they do with the lab ones is they'll like cut and paste, and they're like, kind of like proprietary viruses they use for testing different things.
Do you know which lab? Because
this one says US 2017. Yeah, it's like there's just like a sequence identifier that they have in here. And they list it as whether it's an artificial one. But like a lot of these companies will use these different artificial viruses for whatever testing they need to do or research. So,
well, I ask because a lot of the, and you should be able to share now. The concern is that the investigators weren't able to look at the actual content of what was going on in that lab. And wow, that's a lot of really small numbers.
Yeah, really small numbers, right? Yeah. So I'm going to pull up the blast thing where I plugged in the accession numbers. So it's actually pretty cool. You can run a test in here. But anyways, and then I pasted in this virus here, which was one of them, and the artificial ones, and this other chimeric one artificial
one.
I
see what you're saying up at the top there.
Yeah. But anyways, percent identical is like referring to like, if you're looking at the way these sequences line up in here, it's like this one here is like, if you look at red, means there are more than 200 base pairs that align up perfectly. And then there's a couple of others where there's like a break right here where like they would introduce, where there's like substantial mutations that would occur basically. And like, if you're looking at these different alignments and stuff, it's like, here's SARS-CoV-2 in this one particular section of it, everything lines up basically. And then when there's a difference, they'll point it out here, like this one here, there's 2 T's versus 2 C's here. So, the thymine gets the 2 thymines get switched with 2 cytosines or otherwise. So I thought it was pretty cool though, like that. I mean, what's amazing about technology these days is our National Institute of Health provides these as free resources that, just an average Joe like me can plug in these different things. And I guess you could say like, at least reasonably disprove that like known lab ones like this one here are 20% dissimilar. And like, I think the length right here is like 29,855 base pairs for the Wuhan identified coronavirus. So,
okay.
So anyways, I thought that was super cool. You can just look all that up and anyway, so this paper here, I'll just provide it up here as this is the title of it. And that's where it's from. But yeah, so this paper here, T. Dallavilla, M. Bertelli, A. Moresi, V. Bouchatti, L. Stupia. Yeah, this person here.
Good job. Good job, Jack. Good job trying.
Yeah, I'm giving up, but there's a lot of folks involved that they did the research here, and basically they're trying to compare and contrast what's known. I think that was like after the media was like pushing this alternative hypothesis of like maybe it came from a lab, but of the known lab ones, they didn't match. And so there's like, obviously we still have the question of where did this thing come from? How did it come out? I think those are, maybe the future will give us better information, but.
Did you see the South Park episode about it?
I didn't see the South Park episode, and I love South Park too. So
I won't give it away, but it's worth watching. And apparently they have a new vacation special or vaccination special that's a sequel to it. I haven't watched that one yet either, but yeah, it's an interesting subject. I don't know. I still feel like there's, I can't speak definitively on any of it. So at this point, it's all just interesting to me. So yeah, it's I don't know. It's going to be.
I'm excited for it all to be done. Like I like hanging out with my friends. I want to get back to just normal. Like and the thing too is, it's like, I mean, I think there's like some good of it. Like now people are like a little bit more health conscientious. Like if you're, there's people aren't necessarily just going out everywhere. Or at least they're saying like, hey, my kid's sick before they get together. And you'd be like, no, don't get together with me or whatever. We're all sharing the same germ circle. Fine.
Yeah. At least it's a known risk. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like there's more like societal norms introduced to that, but I do think it's going to be a weird period of transition of like, let's say we hit herd immunity, let's say we vaccinate everyone. A lot of people will still be like, I'm not going out, or I'm not, people are too close together, germ factory, right? Like, so I think there's going to be a lot of long-term damage at a societal level, but I do think things will get back to normal.
That'll be weird for a while because it's one of those things like, man, you never thought anyone would be used to everyone wearing a mask. And now it's like you walk through the supermarket and it's like, yeah, no big deal. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Everyone's wearing a mask. You don't even think twice about it. And now we're going to have to switch back again to where eventually nobody's wearing a mask. And, maybe there's a couple people who are sick. And then it's like they wear a mask. And it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
Why are they wearing a mask? And like, is there going to be like I think it's Japan. If somebody over there is sick, they just put a mask on.
Yeah.
And they go about their business, and it's just a courtesy thing.
Yeah.
But here, after how politicized everything got, it's going to be.
That's the real bummer.
Are you afraid?
It's such a bummer because it's like, had it not gotten politicized, it actually could have been culturally normalized, which is like, if you're sick, you wear a mask. No, you're not a weirdo. You're just being polite to your neighbors. And like in Japan, they had a big scare with SARS-CoV-1 which was also why early on in the pandemic, they were able to get like so much more testing done. We definitely had a couple oofs and whoopsies, and we're stepping over our own toes a lot of like, no, we're going to do our own test because we're American. We do it better than everyone else. Like, we won't use that WHO test. We wanted to hook into our flu zone or whatever, like the flu testing diagnostics. I get that, but there's already a known test out there that like would have, shoulda, woulda, coulda, like maybe we could have prevented more deaths. I don't know. Like, I think the hard part too is like, I mean, crying out loud, we both live in the county that was like the first one in Washington state that, had the outbreak, right? Snohomish County, we were early on.
Weird. That was really weird being like, hearing about this impending pandemic and then being like, there's confirmed cases, it's like,
right. Where? Exactly. It's like, like it feels far away. It's
20 miles away. 20 miles away.
It's here. Yeah, totally.
Like, growing up in Montana, all this stuff always happened somewhere else. So,
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of people who are worried about a fourth wave right now. And I think that, with vaccinations being out for as long as they are, for the data showing that this thing is actually a lot less deadly than it supposedly was, there's going to be a lot of people who just say, screw it, I'm going out. And
oh yeah,
I mean, well, that's the thing too, especially in the summer, because we have summer coming.
Yeah, well, and the hard part too is like, obviously our kids can't get vaccinated. The youngest vaccine out there right now is up to 16 and over, right? With Pfizer, I think. Mm-hmm. And two, for most kids, like, they're asymptomatic. Yeah, there will be some. I don't want to dismiss that there aren't like some kids that will get drastically sick. Like, every population has its subset of challenges or secondary comorbidities and whatnot, like, or just fluke weird things. Like, the news has thoroughly highlighted edge cases. We, totally get that. 99% of the time, people are going to be fine in that age group. But I think the question is like, how much responsibility as a parent or whatever do you have if like, this was a real challenge for us, which is like, I was on the more like, let's be cautious end of the spectrum while we had family living with us. And we had other folks that are like, I don't care, I'm going to do whatever. And it's like, and they definitely had some health concerns. You're like, you probably should be a little more cautious about this given your health issues.
Yeah.
So, and as a society, we have to grapple with that exact same thing, which is like, you have people that are at risk that probably should be more cautious. And we have other people that aren't at risk that are being overly cautious and kind of like just not living life. And it's like, neither of those ranges are healthy.
Well, and both of them have costs. Cause I mean, the person who is actually more likely to survive COVID, but is deciding to just live in a cave.
Yeah.
That will, you do that on a large enough level, and suicide, depression, anxiety,
absolutely.
will all go up. And, that is a cost overall to society, which, you never want to have to be in that kind of situation. But I mean, it's very easy to kind of essentially give in to fear on this one after we've been talked to for a year about how bad this thing is.
Yeah.
So
I got to wrap up here because we have the birthday event we're heading to now. So it is time.
Okay. Well, try to end it on a more positive note. So go team.
go team. I think there's actually a lot of positives. I think we're right at the tail end of this thing, at least in the United States. And hopefully we're able to share our resources with those in need. And this can all be a not so fond memory for a lot of folks, but we'll be done with this, and we'll get, so let's watch Contagion together on the topic of,
on the topic of being
totally positive.
Of being positive. Yes. That's great. Okay.
No, I think there's a lot of good research that's come out of this thing. Honestly, there's a lot of learning. There's a lot of challenge.
Well, and that's like the mRNA stuff, like being able to prove that worked. Like, who would have thought we would have been able to prove it? Like, because that would have been probably 10 years out before it actually
and there's some real diseases that could, I mean, like, if we can, like, we've proven the general concept that mRNA can be safely tolerated. Cancer research, being able to produce new vaccines for like the flu variant, like in 60 days versus like months, because just growing things in eggs takes a long time.
Oh yeah.
Think of how many chickens we've made happy.
All right. Do you have any social media that you want to call out? on this?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, at Jack D. Peterson is my Twitter handle. It's probably the best place to find me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All
Thanks
right.
again.
Well, thank you very much. And talk to you later.
Sounds good. Take care.
All right. Bye, man.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right,
done.
sweet. Cheers, man.
Yeah, really appreciate it. I don't think there was too much that would need to be taken out there. Do you want me to try and take the kids' names out?
I don't really care. It's fine.
Okay. I'm
Either
not
way.
too worried about it.
If you want to, you can. I won't say no. I'll put it that way. So,
Okay.
But family's in the car, so I legit got to bounce.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will talk to you later. Have fun celebrating the birthday.
Sounds good. Later.
Later.